Welcome to Watch the Booker Man and the third episode of this 10-part series as we continue to build to Paul Heyman's arrival in the company in January 2010. This is Turning Point 2009 and probably the show in this series will most come into its own as I've changed a number of booking decisions from this show in real life as I look to continue to shape the roster and put the pieces of the jigsaw into place to ensure that Paul Heyman can have the best possible start with the first show of the new decade. I'm going to run the show now and we'll see how Turning Point 2009 goes with those changes that I've made. And the pay-per-view begins with the traditional hype package at the start of the show, highlighting the key matches, particularly Kurt Angle versus Desmond Wolfe in their return match from their match on Impact, and the triple threat, the unbreakable rematch, AJ Styles versus Daniels versus Samoa Joe for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. We then go into the opening match, and it's pretty much a TNA tradition that the X Division title match goes on first, and it's a good high spots rated match. Amazing Red picking up the win with a code red from the second rope. Don West was at ringside and joins him after the match to celebrate. Amazing Red is somebody who almost exemplifies the X Division style perfectly. I don't think like AJ Styles, Daniel, Samoa Joe, they all sort of graduated to the heavyweight division. I don't think that's something that's likely to happen for Amazing Red. It might happen if he gets particularly over, but I think he's somebody who's always going to be in the X division, but always going to be somebody who is raising the bar for what we expect from people in that division. His athleticism, his innovation is something that's a very, very strong point for him. Having Don West as manager, I'm not sure. The theory behind putting a mouthpiece with Amazing Red because promos aren't his strong point is very good, but does Don West fit with the image and the style we want to go? That's something I'm going to have to think about. At the minute, it seems unlikely Don West is going to continue to be on screen in 2010, but for now, he's doing an okay job, a perfectly fine job of managing Amazing Red as we go into a discussion segment between Taz and Mike Tenay, and they're just talking about Desmond Wolfe's arrival and what he did to Kurt Angle, and it just put over what a big moment it was when he beat Kurt Angle by referee stoppage. Taz, however, says that Kurt is prepared, he knows more about Desmond Wolfe now, and he backs him to get even tonight. Mike Tenay isn't so sure, but we will find out later on in the night as we go into the second match of the night, which is all the knockouts gold on the line in a 3-on-3 match. ODB, Taylor Wilde and Sarita defeat the Beautiful People, Lacey Von Erich being pinned by the Knockouts champion ODB. After the match, they stand tall and celebrate. The Beautiful People regroup in the ring. ODB, Sarita and Taylor Wilde are going to be big parts of the roster going forward. ODB's got a strong defined character, and Sarita and Taylor Wilde are really good in-ring performers, so they are some of the women who are going to be key parts of this division going forward, and of course we'll have to add to that and continue to build up some of the other people in the division. Desmond Wolfe is then interviewed promoting the match with Kurt Angle tonight, and he's basically saying that Kurt Angle doesn't respect him and he doesn't like him, and that's fine because tonight the whole world is going to see the difference in skill between the two of them. Kurt Angle was the best in the world, he was one of the best wrestlers ever, but Desmond Wolfe's time is now. He's going to beat Kurt Angle and then he's going to ascend to the number one contendership for whoever wins the World Championship tonight. He also calls Kurt Angle a wanker during the segment. Desmond Wolfe's promos at this time weren't something I was particularly fond of. I thought there was a lot of sort of Wolf wordplay that was just a bit corny and a lot of British slang. I think going forward we're going to change his character a little bit, but for now he's been introduced in a certain way and we're going to keep that going at least for now as we go into the third match of the night, the three-way for the tag team titles, and the British Invasion do retain the titles. I said previously that Beer Money and Motor City Machine Guns are the two teams we're going to build the tag team division around, but I have a sort of moment in mind for the coronation of a new tag team champions, which will probably take place on next month's pay-per-view, if not the month after or on that first show of 2010. But for now, I think British Invasion keeping the titles for another month or two is perfectly fine. I don't think they're the most exciting tag team, although I was a big fan of them at the time. Beer Money and Motor City Machine Guns are eventually going to be cornerstones of this roster, whereas I think British Invasion will always be a decent mid-card act, but for now they retain the titles thanks to Rob Terry and Eric Young getting involved. In real life, Kevin Nash came back during this match and sort of went into a strange relationship with Eric Young that saw them go away from the World Elite a little bit. I didn't want to bring Kevin Nash back because it would have been bringing him back for the sake of 6 weeks, because there's no way. He's the antithesis of the young, hungry sort of movement that we're going with. So Kevin Nash isn't going to be part of the show. He can sit home and see out his contract or whatever. But on the ramp, the World Elite stand tall, picking up a victory, stealing a victory in a way. We then get a video package for the rivalry between Terra and Kong. These are two of the top names in the division, and Terra is sick of Awesome Kong bullying everybody, and she's going to stand up for her and she's going to tear down the monster tonight, and she does do that. Awesome Kong is a unique attraction to this division. There is nobody else like her in the world, or very few competitors who can do the role that she does But at the moment, this is about getting Terra over as a babyface in the division. She is going to be the next challenger for the Women's Championship, the Knockouts Championship. It says a widow's peak there. I don't even think that's physically possible. In the real match, and this is what I consider to be the finish, is her coming off the top of the cage and taking Kong down and pinning her 1, 2, 3. Terra then states her intention to go for the Knockouts Championship, as I mentioned earlier. She wants to face ODB and she wants to be the next women's champion. We then get another match with the makeshift team of De Niro and the tag team of Hernandez and Matt Morgan. De Niro stepped up this Thursday on Impact when Team 3D and Rhino challenged these two to a match. He's not to be trusted is generally the vibe that we're putting across, but he does nothing to disprove that he is on their side. He's absolutely cohesive as part of the team, and he helps them onto victory against Rhino and Team 3D. This is a booking decision that I've changed because Team 3D and Rhino won this match. They then had another match, I think a street fight on Impact, which they won again. So I think Rhino and Team 3D going over these guys twice in a row isn't a good idea. The storyline is going to continue because during the match Rhino thinks he tags in Brother Ray or Brother Devon. The referee claims he doesn't. It's deemed as a missed call by the referee, and this is what eventually leads to Matt Morgan pinning Rhino with a carbon footprint. However, as Rhino complains and pleads to Team 3D that it wasn't his fault that they lost, the replay shows that the referee made exactly the right call. The tag wasn't made and Rhino should have no excuses. Of course, this is only going to play into his conspiracy, and with Paul Heyman coming, I think there's an interesting dynamic between the fact that Rhino, Brother Ray and Brother Devon aren't going to be part of that young hungry movement. They're not really fitting the mould of where we're going, but they have their history with Paul Heyman. So I think while long term these guys probably aren't going to be big parts of the roster, there is an interesting dynamic to play with there, at least at the start, and with the guys trying to fit in. In real life, not long after this, Brother Ray lost all that weight and reinvented himself as a main event guy, so possibly he could be a part of the roster going forward. Devon also, both of them actually got themselves into shape, although Rhino didn't really appear much, so maybe Team 3D can still be a part of the roster as the veterans of the tag team division, but that's something I'll have to decide at a later date. We then get a Scott Steiner promo. I'm pretty sure this was unscripted because you don't script Scott Steiner, do you? Obviously says whatever he's going to say, but the point that we take away from it is that he's going to take out Lashley and then go home with his wife. Crystal Lashley is not at ringside for this Falls Count Anywhere match that goes all over the arena. They go into the back. It's just a 10-minute match and it's a mayhem match, which means it's overbooked, loads of spots, which doesn't sit well with a crowd, so probably not something I'm going to do too much. But Bobby Lashley defeats Scott Steiner by spearing him through a piece of the set. I'm not exactly sure, some kind of drywall thing or whatever, but the idea is that Bobby Lashley goes straight into Scott Steiner and slumps on top of him. He's not even aware of what's going on as the referee counts the 1, 2, 3, and after the bell he comes to before Scott Steiner, but he can barely stand. He's won the match, but he's only aware of it because the referee raises his arm. Bobby Lashley and Scott Steiner aren't going to be long-term members of the roster, as I've said before, because Lashley did leave in January 2010, and Scott Steiner, another one like Kevin Nash. A lot of people like him. I think both Steiner and Nash are entertaining wrestlers, but they do not fit in the vision, as I've said 100 times already. But Bobby Lashley is somebody who I would have loved to have had long-term in the save, but I will probably have him leave in January to go and focus on his MMA. Nonetheless, he is somebody worth building up, even if it's only for a 2-month period, because he is pretty young at this time, but he is strong and athletic and legitimate. He is such a good member of the roster. He's not as good then as he is now, but still he has a lot of attributes that we're going to tap into as we go into a Kurt Angle promo. He's putting over that there is nobody coming in to take his spot. He is the top dog in TNA. He'll happily admit it. He's the greatest wrestler in the world today, and he's going to prove it tonight. Desmond Wolfe is going to have a rude awakening. He wasn't ready for him. That is true when they wrestled on Impact, but tonight he is more than ready for Desmond Wolfe. He has studied his game and he is ready to win. Despite those words, Kurt Angle is mistaken as Desmond Wolfe picks up a second straight victory against him with the Tower of London. This time it is a decisive pinfall finish. It isn't up to the referee. He simply counts the 1, 2, 3 and Desmond Wolfe proves himself to be the better man than Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is over 40, but Paul Heyman did say in those interviews that he'd want one person over 40 to serve as the veteran. That would be their niche, that would be their unique selling point. And Kurt Angle, I don't think there's a wrestler in the world over 40 who you'd rather have for that position. Kurt Angle is still absolutely brilliant at this time. He gets an 87 in this, but the booking decision is to just try and keep putting over Desmond Wolfe. He's a new member of the roster, and I think when they had him lose to Angle at Turning Point 2009, it was a bit too soon into his run to have him lose. Of course, there's no shame in being beat by Kurt Angle, and it did lead to a third match down the line, but what I want to do is really put over the impact of this newcomer by beating Kurt Angle twice in a row. Kurt Angle was furious with the booking of the match, But when you're trying to get young guys over, when you're trying to build up guys from the mid-card to the top of the card, that is something that you're going to have to deal with, and Kurt Angle can be unhappy, and we'll see where the story goes from here. But Kurt Angle is a key part of the plans going forward. You'd be stupid to put him to the sidelines, but I think the story is best told with Kurt Angle continuing to struggle and Desmond Wolfe looking strong in victory. He picks up another win over Angle. Does he have Kurt Angle's number? That is the suggestion from the commentators. Did Kurt Angle come back too soon from that severe injury that he suffered during that match? Perhaps he wasn't 100% going into this match, but Desmond Wolfe stands tall over him. As we go from that, a youngster, a newcomer picking up a big victory against the old guard is a perfect segue into a video package which is based on the new direction, the tagline of being young, hungry, talented and diverse. The incredible TNA roster that we know of: AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, Kong, the Motor City Machine Guns, ODB, De Niro, Hernandez, Matt Morgan. There's so many people and such a plethora of talent, different styles and different approaches. It's possibly best that I leave this to the words of Paul Heyman in how we want to market this video package and how the company is going to be presented going forward.
The young, hungry, aggressive alternative to WWE, youth, and nothing but youth.
Yeah.
And always have, one legend around who's your exception, have different cultures and genres and demographics represented, and bring this potpourri mix onto television with a young, hungry, aggressive campaign with contemporary music, etc., etc.
So it's all about that new approach and that fresh booking philosophy, and there's no better way to put that over than having Desmond Wolfe go over Kurt Angle in the match before, and then we go into the match which these three guys just are TNA. There couldn't be a better match to exemplify the new direction than these three: AJ Styles, Daniels and Samoa Joe, the Unbreakable rematch. This is something that TNA definitely did right in their booking of the show in real life, and as far as I'm concerned, I've not touched it. This is the match that they did at Turning Point 2009. The finish coming when Daniels hits a best moonsault ever to Samoa Joe. AJ Styles comes in with a 450, his knees in the back of Daniels, and then pins Samoa Joe to somewhat steal the victory from Daniels, it could be said. But yeah, this is the perfect match to come out of that video package, and AJ Styles stands tall to end the show. Again, there's nobody you'd rather have as the TNA World Champion at this time than AJ Styles. He is young, he is athletic, he is fast-paced, he is not a WWE-style performer, despite the fact that he did become a huge part of WWE in later years. Samoa Joe took the fall. Did he steal Daniels' moment? So this storyline is far from over, but I'm very happy with how the pay-per-view's gone. I changed a few of the matches. We had Lashley over Steiner instead of the other way around. We had Wolfe over Angle instead of the other way around, and we had De Niro, Hernandez and Morgan over Rhino and Team 3D. All those guys are going to be key parts of the company going forward, and Turning Point 2009 in the bag. A great pay-per-view. Really happy with how that came out. It is fitting that Turning Point 2009 is when we officially unveil that new philosophy and that new direction with that incredible main event. Very happy with that, and all the fallout will come on the fourth part of the series, Impact, coming very soon.